Let's go. Blockchain crypto gang. Make sure the mic is good. Everything is straight. I know sometimes it takes a minute for the microphone to catch up. Anyway, I'm on Brave browser, live streaming, formerly known as Crypt Talk Podcast. And I wanted to get into a few stories and really just talk to you guys. I don't even know if I'm really even on real quick. Let me see. Maybe I'm not. Yeah. All right, no big deal if I'm not. I don't need to be necessarily. Anyway, let's get it. So while they FUD, I did a video a few days ago, a couple videos, when the market, quote unquote, was starting to kind of crash and fall off. And I was showing you guys, I was telling you guys that I thought it was a manipulated move. I didn't think that really there was any logical reason for Bitcoin to be quote unquote crashing and the crypto market following suit, the rest of the market, the altcoins. And in retrospect, it's not even like Bitcoin really fell. I mean, I think it dropped 7%, maybe 8.5%. And then the other cryptos, of course, if Bitcoin is down 8%, then the other coins are going to be 20, 30%, depending on the market cap. Depending on how much market cap these coins have is going to depend on, that's going to determine how much of a swing, you'll see in prices. And like I said, I thought it was possibly manipulated because, the news that came out wasn't substantiated. It was really only opinion. And it was from a source that most people have never heard of. And of course, as I mentioned, while you see these dips, you always see the same usual suspects buying the dip. And of course, Michael Saylor being that main one. So let's check out this story right here. Michael Saylor. So listen, I've said this before. I'm not really trying to orange pill anymore. Of course, we all say that, but my job is not so much to orange pill new people. My job is to give information to those who are already looking at Bitcoin as an option, already understanding the importance of blockchain technology and what is really happening with this wealth transfer that is happening before our eyes. My job is to give information to those who already know, who may just be new in, this Bitcoin and crypto market. Because we are witnessing something that we've never witnessed in our lifetime. Not only are we witnessing something that we've never witnessed in our lifetime, we're also witnessing something that we can all participate in. I've said this before years ago. Every time I think of my old channel, I get more and more sad. Because a lot of the things that I said on Crypt Talk podcast from 2019 to just a month and a half ago when it was taken down for exposing an internet crime ring that used multi-level marketing and crypto to scam people. But anyway, everything that I've been saying leading up to this point is now looking very prophetic. It's making it looks like I was right a lot. And I wish I had these receipts, even though I do retroactively, I still could release some of these videos that I made. But anyway, back to what I was saying. What we're witnessing and going through right now is a wealth transfer like we've never seen before. See, the other wealth transfers that we could think of, the oil boom, which made a lot of people wealthy, but not everybody could participate in drilling oil. You had to have a lot of money just to attempt to drill for oil, which you may not be successful with. The gold rush of the 1800s. Not everybody had the ability to pack up and go out west to mine for gold. You already had to have money for that. You had to take risk with your life to do something like that. You can even think about the internet bubble. This is something like the internet bubble, or the internet, when internet e-commerce first started to blossom. You can compare it to that, but this is something much bigger in the same realm, but much bigger. And this is something that everyone could take advantage of. Everyone can access the ability to hold Bitcoin or other cryptos if you're into that. The threshold, the bar, the entry barrier is a lot lower. All you need is an internet connection, a smart device, and you can participate in global finances like never before. Everyone who doesn't have a bank, the 2 billion people on this planet who are underbanked or unbanked because maybe it's too hard to acquire and to maintain a bank in their country, still can participate in global finances via cryptos like Bitcoin. So when we hear people like, and I've told people about Bitcoin for years, I'm sure you have. We see it every cycle. The same ones that deny Bitcoin, they call it a bubble. They listen to the mainstream media about how volatile it is, and it's just for criminal activities and et cetera, et cetera. They're the same ones that once this market really starts going parabolic, they double back to want to buy Bitcoin. I'm sure when Bitcoin hits 100,000, we're going to see some of the same people who are telling you that Bitcoin is just too risky. It's not real. They're going to double back. Same ones who didn't want to buy Bitcoin at 10,000 last bull run. Once it got to 50, they started, oh, shoot, let me, So while the FUD is happening, things like this are also happening. Check this out. Let's get to the first story. Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy is selling 216 million of his shares to buy more Bitcoin. So, when people are acting like Bitcoin is just not the future, they can't comprehend. They can't foresee the idea that Bitcoin is the future, cryptocurrencies, central bank digital currencies, blockchain technology, let's say, is the future of money. The tokenization that can happen on the blockchain, meaning any commodities, houses, homes could be tokenized. Like, this is just where we're going. If you don't think so, why are all the rich billionaires loading up on Bitcoin? Why are all the financial instruments used for investments pouring into Bitcoin? Why are these large corporations pouring into Bitcoin? Why are countries not only making Bitcoin legal tender in their country, but also mining and buying and holding Bitcoin? You see, what's going to happen, unfortunately, for some people, and this is why I don't want to really waste my time on those zombies who are who are walking around not paying attention to what's going on just because it's not in the mainstream. This is why channels like this exist. Why are things like this constantly going on, and we still have people who are FUDing or just not understanding? Michael Saylor plans to buy more Bitcoin for himself. So he is actually selling. He plans to sell 315,000 shares of his own company in order to buy Bitcoin. And not just Bitcoin for his company, but this time he needs it for himself. 216 million is what he plans to put into Bitcoin for himself. Previously disclosed, this is MicroStrategy, Saylor's plan to sell up to 400,000 shares of his company stock over 4 months in its November 10th Q filings with the SEC, because he's a public company. He has to say these things. The NASDAQ listed firm explained that the prearranged 10B51 trading plan triggered by a stock option that expires April 30th, 2024. Just so happens that is about within a week of the next halving. So April 25th-ish, the Bitcoin production will be cut in half, and that's when his options expire. Of course, he's going to use this as an opportunity to get as much Bitcoin before then, because he understands that once Bitcoin halving event happens, what does that mean? That means that Bitcoin will be twice as scarce as it is right now. So instead of 900 Bitcoins being created a day, it will go down to 450. But these large corporations, these investment firms, people like Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy, who just purchased like 16,000 Bitcoin like last month. Think about that. A couple months ago, he bought 16,000 more Bitcoin in one day. Only 450 Bitcoin will be created starting in April. Even when he bought it, only 900 Bitcoins were being created a day. So he actually bought over 16 times the amount of Bitcoin mined in a day, in one day. And he is not the only person purchasing Bitcoin. So check this out. I was granted, this is what he's saying, I was granted a stock option in 2014 with respects to 400,000 shares, which is going to expire next April. If I don't exercise it by then, the executive chairman began. For almost a decade now, at my request, the company has only paid me a $1 salary, and I've chosen not to be eligible for any cash bonuses. Saylor continued, exercising this option will allow me to address some financial obligations as well as acquire additional Bitcoin for my personal account. While Saylor has not disclosed how much Bitcoin he owns recently, he said in October 2020 that he personally owns 17,732 Bitcoin. Meanwhile, his software intelligence firm publicly reported holdings of 189,150 Bitcoin as of December 2023. So check this out. This dude he's creeping up towards 200,000 Bitcoin owned. More than 200,000 if you include his personal with his business, but his business alone owns nearly 190,000 Bitcoins and continues to purchase. He's liquidating his own stock to buy more Bitcoin. So what do these rich people know that we don't know? What do these large institutions and corporations know that most people don't know, that is compelling them to want to own all the Bitcoin? Remember, Bitcoin was created for us. Bitcoin was FUBU. It was for us, by us. It was for the people, by the people. It was created. This technology that we call blockchain is the only technology that you can think of that wasn't created by a government or a corporation. It was created by regular people as a response to the 2008 financial crisis that left a lot of people financially devastated. So Satoshi Nakamoto, he heard them. Not like that, but we don't know if it, collaboration of people, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Satoshi Nakamoto decided to create a financial instrument, a financial payment system and currency that is peer-to-peer, doesn't rely upon nor cannot be infringed upon by intermediaries like the same banking institutions that led to the financial crash. It was created as a way for us, working class, to be able to have an alternative way to transfer and hold wealth and participate in finances, economics, if you will, without permission and in a more secure, anonymous way. So like I've said before, if you can't beat them, buy it. That's basically what we're seeing. The same institutions that were telling us that, first of all, ignored Bitcoin for the first several years, mocked it for years after that, and now we're on the tail end of Bitcoin being attacked. Because like I said before, once this Bitcoin ETF is approved, which will probably happen within the next week, I'm assuming next week or two, we'll hear at least one approval. Well, these same, institutions that were mocking it, once they get a hold of their Bitcoin ETFs, you will not see FUD. Mark my words. The mainstream FUD will disappear. Let me show you something real quick, just to kind of show you before we get into this BlackRock thing. Let me show you this real quick. Bam. This was something that was shared, and I had to show you guys this right here. A Wall Street-backed firm bought 264 Las Vegas Valley homes in just one day. A study shows that these sorts of companies could own close to 40% of all U.S. houses by 2030. Now, I've seen this type of news for the past several months of different companies buying up homes by the hundreds all over the country. And as I looked into it, what I found is that these companies that are buying these homes, they're not buying them to flip them. They're not buying them to sell them. They have no intentions of selling them at all. So here we go. Another asset. Remember, home ownership is the most common way for generational wealth, because you buy a home, you pass it down to your children. It's generational wealth. You can take money out of your home. They're not buying these homes to sell them. They plan on just renting them out. So now we have conglomerates buying homes with intentions just to rent them out, meaning making it more challenging and difficult, and in some cases impossible, for the average person to own a home and have a way to create generational wealth. This is happening all over the country. If it's 40% by 2030, what is it by 2040? What is it by 2050? Well, I read something that they said by 2050, they expect 80% of homes to be owned by conglomerate corporations like this one. And guess who's behind the largest owner of real estate in the country? Yes, I looked it up. Guess. Dun, dun, dun. It's BlackRock. It's BlackRock. So BlackRock, on one hand, is the biggest owner, or owns significant percentages in the biggest real estate purchaser in the country that doesn't plan on selling the homes, but just renting them out. Well, what do you think these ETFs are? This is what I've been saying. What do you think the ETFs are? I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not a fan of Bitcoin ETFs. I'm not. I understand that, hey, okay, Bitcoin ETFs, there'll probably be $1 trillion that will pour into Bitcoin within this year alone because of ETFs. I get it. But what they're doing with the Bitcoin is the same thing they're doing with the real estate. They're going to buy up as much Bitcoin as possible, and then they're going to rent it to you. What does renting Bitcoin look like? Oh, let me tell you what renting Bitcoin looks like. You buy Bitcoin ETF. Let's say you buy 20,000 worth of Bitcoin for an ETF, right? They're not really giving you the Bitcoin. And even when you want to sell it, they're not giving you Bitcoin. You're renting the opportunity to take advantage of the gains made by Bitcoin. Never will you own that Bitcoin. They own the Bitcoin. They'll give you an IOU based on the returns of Bitcoin, but never will that Bitcoin be relinquished out of their custody. So BlackRock positions $2 billion for imminent Bitcoin BTF approval. Now, this is just what they're starting the game off with. They're not, this isn't like just what they're going to own. You can bet once they get approved, they'll probably double, triple, quadruple down on their Bitcoin holdings. So BlackRock gears up with $2 billion for the expected launch of the US's first spot Bitcoin ETF, with the SEC decision due by January 10th. So just in 4 days, their decision has to be made. While things look all but set for the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's SEC approval of spot Bitcoin ETF, investment management firm BlackRock is apparently making moves behind the scenes in preparation for ETF trading. In the recent weeks, BlackRock has been one of the most aggressive applicants to have met the SEC's requirement as well, holding discussions on the potential approval. So look at what's going on here. So this is what I said, like, yo, if you don't think that these ETF applicants took advantage of Bitcoin's dip, Of course they did. That's why I said it's possible that it was manipulation going on. Like we've seen it before. So yes, they're buying up the Bitcoin, the same asset that some of your friends and family, my friends or family, don't understand, only listen to the FUD by the mainstream. And when we try to have these discussions, they have excuses why, oh no, nah, they don't get it. They're not gonna get it. We're at a wealth transfer with all the distractions going on. You wonder why this stuff isn't on the mainstream, but only if you're tapped into this information does it start to click like, yo, why isn't this on the mainstream? Why isn't BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world with over 10, not billion, but trillion in assets under management, now starting to pick up Bitcoin by the billions, along with a dozen other institutions looking to have the right to issue ETFs? And I've said this before, Crypt Talk Podcast, I told you, these large institutions are buying up the Bitcoin with intention to sell them back to you in derivatives, but they're not doing it for free. So if you buy Bitcoin ETFs and you put 50,000, 100,000 into a Bitcoin ETF, well, to me, it's whatever. Like if you're not tech savvy and it's just easier like that, and you're an old dinosaur who hasn't caught up with technology, fine. But when you decide to take profits from your ETF, there's going to be fees involved, which will be higher than it would be just for the network fees to sell the Bitcoin yourself or move the Bitcoin yourself if you really truly held the Bitcoin yourself. And then you have to deal with the fact that, okay, well, Fidelity, another applicant for a Bitcoin ETF, or your favorite bank, they're not open 24 hours. Bitcoin trades 24 hours. So you're going to have from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock to do all your Bitcoin, whatever you want to do, Monday through Friday. So if Bitcoin started to just, make major moves Friday at 5:01, you have to wait till Monday. So you won't have 24-hour access like you really would if you held the Bitcoin. You're going to have to pay fees that's typically not associated with Bitcoin. And you're going to have to accept the risk that nothing will happen that would make these companies have to liquidate or collapse in some type of way in which you may lose your Bitcoin based on something that you can't control. So anyway, BlackRock has $2 billion worth of Bitcoin ready for existing holders. According to Matthew Siegel, the head of the digital assets research at Van X, reportedly quoted, a source is saying the firm has $2 billion of capital ready to be routed to the ETF from existing Bitcoin holders who would like to rotate into the spot Bitcoin ETFs in the first week of trading. This could be a temporary resort from the firm to get things started in the initial trading session, after which a long-term strategy to acquire BTC based on the demand its iShares spot Bitcoin ETFs attract. And you bet there will be demand. So this is why I'm saying, like, I'm not a fan of the Bitcoin ETFs, even though I understand that, with approval of Bitcoin ETFs will come more into the market cap because these issuers will have to actually have Bitcoin. And I'm assuming they're going to seed them very well. My concern is that, they could play games with it. So yeah, they could buy $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. But then what happens when $5 billion of money pour in to these ETFs? Are they going to double back and add $3 more billion worth of Bitcoin? Because if they don't, they just basically debased Bitcoin. They've just basically counterfeited Bitcoin. So we'll see. But nevertheless, it just moves the Bitcoin into the hands of the few. So we went from this opportunity as retailers, people like me and you have an opportunity to buy Bitcoin. I don't care if you only could buy 50 a week, of us being able to hold Bitcoin as a way to, build our wealth, to the same ones who shamed us for it early on, saying it's all about money laundering and terrorist assistance and illicit activities, and it's too volatile. It's not real money. It'll never be accepted in the real world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or they just ignored it because they understood that for too many people to be hip on what Bitcoin, blockchain, decentralized finance is all about, then it would make us less reliant upon banks. Now they want all the Bitcoin because that would mean that, you know, they stay relevant. Look, if everybody dipped, if everybody said, look, you know, we could deal with decentralized finances, we could deal with stable coins, Bitcoin, other cryptos, everyone accepts it now for payment, you PayPal, et cetera, et cetera. That would take the money out of the native currencies in the respective countries we live in. It would make banks less necessary, and it would take the control out of the few's hands. They understood that this shift would likely happen, which is why they had to ignore it, which is why I said before, they're going to ignore it. You're not going to see it on the mainstream until they have their own products and services. Well, that's exactly what this Bitcoin ETF represents, right? It represents their own services. This is now them usurping the products and services that are on the blockchain. And now that they have their own products and services, you'll see this on the mainstream. Now they'll tell you BlackRock, ETFs. Now you'll get emails from your 401k. Your Fidelity 401k will now be telling you can allocate some to Bitcoin. I literally talked to my 401k and they told me Bitcoin was too volatile. Once these ETFs are approved, I have a feeling that they're going to be changing their tune. You're not going to see FUD for Bitcoin on the mainstream media once these ETFs are approved, because that would be a conflict of interest. Most of these media conglomerates, they're sponsored by banks and investment companies. Now that banks and investment companies, you know, are looking to sell Bitcoin and derivatives to people, they're not going to, it's not going to be any FUD. It's going to be all about how great this Bitcoin opportunity is, and you should invest in it via whatever company. Check this out. Modern Investor, Twitter. 2024 begins the literal collapse of Bitcoin issuance rate. There will barely be any created after this halving event that will enter circulation. It will all be accumulated by hedge funds, banks, and countries. There will not be enough left for billions of people. This is a warning, and it's showing you the Bitcoin issuance schedule. Right now, we are at 2024. The issuance for every block currently is at 6.25 Bitcoin. Come April, that is going down to 3 Bitcoin per block, which means it's going from 900 to 450 Bitcoin per day. And then in 4 years after that, it's going down, down, down. But the demand is continuing to rise. You understand? The issuance, so Bitcoin is becoming more and more scarce, but more and more people want it. This is why Bitcoin continues to rise. This is why Bitcoin tripled last year. This is why Bitcoin at one point, it took 10,000 Bitcoins just to buy a Papa John's pizza. Well, that same Papa John's pizza today that cost 10,000 Bitcoins would be about $450 million. Think about that. That same pizza that was purchased for 10,000 Bitcoin in 2009 or 2010, whatever it was, would now, that same 10,000 Bitcoin would be $450 million. That trend will continue because Bitcoin is a deflationary asset, meaning less and less enters into circulation every year, but the demand continues to grow. This is why, to me, Bitcoin is that hedge. Bitcoin is what you hold for generations until you want to liquidate it for something tangible like a bunch of land or something you can hand down to your children like you would a house. It's not a coincidence that the same companies that are buying up all the homes with no intention to sell them because they're greedy, they want all the wealth. So yeah, they're buying up hundreds of homes. Let's go back to that real quick, just in case you all forgot. Let's go back to that image right here. Yes, they're buying up. This is a BlackRock company. This is a company that BlackRock owns large ownership in. And they're not the only ones doing this, buying up hundreds of homes. They do not plan on selling these homes. They only plan on renting them, taking the ability of wealth building out of the hands of hundreds of people just with this purchase. And these purchases are going on across the country every day. So these same people are also buying up all the Bitcoin for the same reason. You got to really understand what's going on. People are not really paying attention. They're not getting it. It's not ringing. So those who understand, what are you going to do about it? Share the information. Yeah, do that. But pay attention to what's going on. Hold steady. Don't allow the FUD to knock you off your square. Saving will not get you to wealth anymore. We're past that. Interest was 8% last year. That's what it was reported, at least. That means you lost 8% of your purchasing power. For all the money that you have in the bank, you lost 8% of purchasing power. Meanwhile, because that's inflation. Meanwhile, how much did your money grow in that bank? 0.25%, 0.5%? Maybe you got a real good deal and you're getting 1%. You're still losing. You can't get to wealth by saving. This is why the SEC went for all the companies that offer staking solutions. All the crypto companies where you can, Coinbase or whatnot, where you can stake coins at 8-10%. That's why they went after them. Because if everyone understands, you know what, these banks are paying me 0.25%, I can stake my USDC, which is a stable coin that doesn't fluctuate, and get 8%. I can hedge against inflation without a bank. Of course, they're going to have to go after these companies because they have to keep people away from these decentralized financial services. And then they'll replicate them with their own products and services that won't be nearly as lucrative. And you will have to relinquish a considerable, if not all of the control that you would have. This is what's going on right now. And it's going right over people's head. I'm not giving financial advice. I'm telling you what's going on. You have to be able to make your own decisions. I'm diversified in the different types of investments that I have. I have stocks, of course, commodities, all that. I got different types of cryptos. I'm not rich. I understand that get rich quick doesn't really work. However, at a time like this, let's be real, at a time like this, and okay, I could get into that one. Should I get into that story? At a time like this, I do understand this, though. I understand that, because of the timing that we're in within the cycle, the halving cycle, which happens about every 4 years, Bitcoin issuance gets cut in half. In layman's terms, for those who don't really understand what the Bitcoin halving is, let's break it down in gold. Let's say 100 pounds of gold is mined every day out of the earth. Every day, 100 pounds of gold is taken out of the earth. And then let's say the SEC or some type of law, because that's exactly what is coded into the Bitcoin core. Let's say there's a law that says, well, after 4 years, you can't take 100 pounds of gold a day. You can only take 50 pounds of gold a day. And then after 4 years after that, you can't take 50 pounds of gold out of the earth a day. Now you can only take 25 pounds of gold a day. And et cetera, et cetera. That's what's going on with Bitcoin. That's what the Bitcoin halving is. The gold, which is Bitcoin in this case, that is taken out of the ground and put into circulation for the public to purchase is being cut in half. This is what's going on with Bitcoin. That's literally what is happening with Bitcoin and has been happening since it was created. So it becomes more and more scarce. Less and less will enter the market. But the demand for Bitcoin is continuing to rise to the point that you have rich people like Michael Saylor selling his own stocks in his own company to buy Bitcoin. You have BlackRock, same company that's buying up all the houses in the country, or they're backing a lot of the companies that are buying all these houses, I should say. They're not directly doing it, but the companies that they own or have 10% and 20% share in, they're buying them. And they're buying $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. Why? Because they're going to sell them back to you in what's called ETFs. Meanwhile, we have stuff like this, which I call 100% cap. And this is what you have to be careful of. When you see, like, when you see these quote unquote experts, investment strategists, institutional CEOs telling you cap about how Bitcoin just isn't it. Remember, this is what JP Morgan said back in the day. But here we go, another one. Bitcoin ETF approval would be a historic mistake, says Better Market CEO. Bloomberg ETF analysis James Seifert. James the Seifert disagrees with the letter, arguing that denying the spot Bitcoin ETF would be a criminal move. Okay, well, that's good. But here's what this guy is saying. We submit this supplemental comment letter, which Better Markets very rarely does, because it would be a grave, if not historic mistake, almost certainly leading to a massive investor harm if the SEC approves pending rule change. So in other words, what he's saying is, hey, they better not. Please don't approve the Bitcoin ETF, which I'm all for in a way, but it's going to happen. But I think this is an attempt to make more FUD in order to bring down the price of Bitcoin. And this is the type of cap we see all the time. This is exactly what we see JP Morgan Chase did for years, saying that Bitcoin was, it's not, they were just FUDing Bitcoin, meanwhile buying it on the low, meanwhile creating digital currencies for depositors, for institutional depositors, meaning like rich people. Anyway, it would take too much to get into that, but the approval of these spot Bitcoin ETFs would not only expose investors to market thoroughly contaminated with fraud and manipulation, he stated. Cointelegraph recently reported that over 324,000 crypto users fell victim to phishing scams in 2023. Okay. Yeah, there is a lot of scams for those, to get caught up in, especially at times like this. But the idea of an ETF is that it's going to be the safer way, right? And yeah, you will fall victim of these scams if you're not paying attention, or if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. If it's multi-level marketing within the crypto, it probably is. Listen, unfortunately, you do have to weed through a lot of scams within this crypto market. And this is why I always say the first thing you do is just learn about Bitcoin. I'm not saying buy it. I'm saying learn what it is, why it is what it is. And in doing that, you'll learn more about blockchain. Once you do that, it will be a lot harder to fall for some of these scams. My last channel, Crypt Talk Podcast, was literally taken down by a multi-hundred million dollar, multi-level marketing crypto scam company called Carrot Bars that morphed into Gold Standard Partners. And they've been attacking my channel for years. Finally, they were able to get it taken down. And like I've said dozens of times on Crypt Talk Podcast, the reason why I minimize my losses in Carrot Bars is because I learned about Bitcoin. It just so happened that when I was waiting for my account at Carrot Bars to be approved, it just so happens they happened to take so long that by the time they approved it, I already had a fundamental understanding of Bitcoin and blockchain. And therefore, what they were doing just made less sense. So I decided not to really go there with them. At the time while I was waiting, yeah, I took a couple $100 worth of Ethereum and Bitcoin and got some of their shitcoin, which I lost it all because, they blocked my access because that's what they do, because they're scamming. They did a rug pull, blah, blah, blah. And, only a few $100 doesn't mean a lot, right? I mean, compared to some people, it wasn't too much of a loss. But even if you calculate how much Bitcoin and how much Ethereum was worth at the time where I gave them that for the shit coin they gave me, it was still tens of thousands, because, you know, $200 at that point would have got you about 3 or 4 Ethereum, which are now $2,500 nearly. So, you know, it was still a loss. But the way I minimized that loss is because I understood fundamentally what Bitcoin and what Ethereum was. That's the point. That's how you inoculate yourself. But anyway, there we go. I could end it off with one thing, but I'm not going to show you all these. But these are some of the videos that ETF issuers released to promote Bitcoin. This is what I'm telling you, you'll see more of. So all these companies that are looking to have Bitcoin ETFs are releasing videos.
I'm coming in hot.
All right. Isn't that cool? What else we got? I'm just showing you guys that, you know, you'll see more of this as time goes on. All right. Here's Van X. Just watch them. Okay, you see what's going on, right? These are different companies that all are jockeying for the ability to issue Bitcoin ETFs, already making commercials promoting Bitcoin. You're going to see more and more of this if these Bitcoin spot ETFs are approved, which I assume at least a couple of them will be within the week. I think the deadline's the 10th. So I think we'll start seeing Bitcoin ETFs approved, and you'll see more of this.
You know what's interesting these days? Bitcoin. Look for Bitwise, my friends.
So anyway, I know this I've been online pretty long at this point. Yeah, 42 minutes in. I think that's long enough to convey the message. I'll get back to doing just a couple stories, just showing you some different stories with various cryptos, maybe some of my picks for some of these altcoins. But the point of this video was just to show you that while they FUD, while you see mainstream FUD of Bitcoin, you're seeing large corporations buy Bitcoin, companies are buying Bitcoin, institutions are buying Bitcoin, countries are buying, mining, and making Bitcoin legal tender in their countries. And of course, the issuance of Bitcoin entering the market is being cut in half April, and the demand is continuing to grow. So don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. There's a reason why this is being ignored by the mainstream. It would be a conflict of interest for people to buy Bitcoin directly or to deal with decentralized protocols in which you can earn higher percentages than holding your money in your bank. It wouldn't make sense for them to hip the world to what this decentralized financial movement that is bubbling could do. It doesn't make sense. Once, as I said before, once we have a situation where all these large institutions and corporations and governments have their own products and services to offer you, like Bitcoin ETFs, then you're going to see it on the mainstream every day. Why? Because essentially it's going to be the same thing that BlackRock is doing. Let me show you one more time. It's going to be the same thing that BlackRock and other companies are doing when they're purchasing all these homes around the world. It's going to be the same thing. They're purchasing the homes. They're purchasing the Bitcoin for the same reason, and it's not to resell it. They're not reselling these homes. They're renting these homes. That means they're taking the opportunity for first-time home buyers and others who want to create generational wealth by home ownership away from the people, because they're buying hundreds of homes just to rent them to people. They're buying thousands and hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin to rent them to offer you exposure through ETFs, meaning you'll never actually own the Bitcoin and you'll be at their mercy when you sell it, what time you sell it, how much you sell it for. And of course, they're going to add on fees that wouldn't normally apply. Anyway, blockchain crypto gang, make sure you could also join the Facebook group. You can follow on Twitter at CryptTalkP. And you could also email at crypttalkpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure you like, subscribe if you haven't already. Message me your comments. Let me know what's on your mind when it comes to this crypto market and what kind of things you'd like to see, what kind of projects you're in, and any questions we have. Thanks for your time, y'all. Peace.